Horror Radio.
This story was sent in by Ryan from Pennsylvania. I worked the night shift at a small campground on the edge of the woods. Midnight to 8 a.m., all alone in a wooden shack no bigger than a bedroom. On quiet nights, the only sounds were crickets and the wind moving through the trees. The guy I replaced warned me about something strange. He said the payphone outside the shack rang once every night at 4:17 a.m. Never twice, just once. He told me he never picked it up because the ring didn't sound normal. It was distorted, almost like it came from underwater. For the first couple months, I didn't notice. Summer nights were hot and I kept the windows shut. But when I started leaving them open, I heard it. 4:17 on the dot, one single ring. It gave me chills, but my curiosity grew. One night, I set an alarm and stood outside by the phone. The woods were silent. At 4:17, it rang. The sound echoed wrong, heavy, metallic. I picked it up. Hello? Nothing. Just faint static, like someone was on the line but refusing to speak. I tried again the next night. Same thing. And again. Always dead air. I stopped after a week. But in early October, I tried one more time. When it rang, I answered. For a moment, there was silence. Then slow, uneven breathing. It sounded like someone inhaling through clenched teeth. And then a voice. Raspy, broken, like gravel grinding together. It said my name, my full name, first, middle, and last. I dropped the phone instantly, my whole body frozen. I didn't give that name to anyone at the campground. Almost nobody even knew I worked nights there. I called star 69. The call traced back to a payphone in Arizona, thousands of miles away. But the worst part wasn't the location. It was what the man on the line said before I hung up. After he spoke my name, there was a pause, then a whisper. I can see you. I never answered that phone again. Phones aren't the only ways strangers reach us. Sometimes instead of hearing a voice, you hear a sound that forces its way into your life. And when it does, it leaves you wondering if you're really alone.
This story was sent in by Daniel from Colorado. It was close to midnight at my job in the warehouse district. The area was empty. Just dark buildings, silent roads, and my office lit by a single fluorescent bulb. I was 15 minutes away from clocking out when it happened. A deafening crash. One of the front windows exploded inward. A rock, the size of a football, rolled across the floor. I froze. My chair nearly tipped over as I looked out at the empty street. No footsteps running away. No sound of tires. Just silence. Whoever threw it was gone, or worse, still nearby. My skin crawled as I picked up the phone and called security. They said they'd check it in the morning, no rush. I decided I wasn't waiting around. I grabbed my bag and hurried out. The whole way to the parking lot, I felt watched. The shadows between the warehouses felt alive. I ran the last few steps, jumped into my car, slammed the door, and sped off. Halfway home, I calmed down until I realized something. I never unlocked my car when I got in. It was already unlocked. I glanced at the back seat, dark, empty. My hand shook as I reached behind me, patting the seats, expecting to touch someone hiding. Nothing, but the fear stayed with me. 30 minutes later, I called a friend. He said he was out drinking and told me to come join him. I didn't want to be alone, so I rode my bike to meet him. The night air was cool, the streets quiet. For a while, I felt fine, until I heard the faint sound of another bike behind me. The rider caught up slowly, wheels crunching the gravel. When he finally pulled beside me, he turned his head and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. His teeth were clenched, eyes wide like he was enjoying something I didn't understand. That's when I noticed the bike he was riding. It was my mother's bike. I froze. That bike had been locked in our garage earlier that night. I sprinted home as fast as I could. When I got there, my heart sank. The garage door was open. My mother's bike was gone. And worse, one of the rear doors of my car was hanging wide open. I never saw the man again. But I knew this. He was already inside my house once. Sometimes it isn't a stranger outside your window or in your car. Sometimes it's the person living right next door. And that can be even worse.
This story was sent in by Evan from Ohio. A few years ago, I rented an apartment from a friend who had just renovated it. The place looked fresh, clean, and for the price, it was perfect. I thought I got lucky. That feeling didn't last long. The neighbor next door was a woman in her 40s, but she looked decades older. Her skin was pale and wrinkled, her hair greasy and unwashed. Every night she stayed awake, blasting Christian radio shows and yelling to someone who wasn't there. At first I thought it was sad. Then it became unbearable. I couldn't sleep. I finally knocked on her door one night to ask her to turn it down. When she opened the door, I caught a glimpse inside. The walls were covered in hand-painted crosses, different colors and sizes, overlapping like graffiti. Words like Jesus and angels were scribbled everywhere in marker and paint. The windows were painted black, no light coming through. The air reeked of mildew and something sour. The carpet was old, yellow-stained, crawling with roaches. And there were dog bowls on the floor, but no dog. I asked politely if she could keep it down. She stared at me without answering, then closed the door in my face. A moment later, the radio got louder. The next night, my girlfriend was staying over. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the shape of a figure standing next to my bed. I thought I was dreaming. I rubbed my eyes, expecting the shadow to vanish, but it didn't. It spoke. "You should lock your doors at night." It was my neighbor. She was standing inches from me, staring down, holding something in her hand. Before I could react, she turned and walked out. The front door creaked shut behind her. I sat frozen, listening to my girlfriend's steady breathing beside me, realizing that woman had been standing over us for who knows how long. The next morning I found her outside below my bedroom window. She was muttering in a strange language, clutching a black trash bag. The smell hit me before I saw what was inside. Her dead dog, rotting in the heat. I went to another tenant for answers. He looked terrified when I asked. He said she had broken into his apartment too. He told me one night while he was watching TV with his kids, he left the couch to grab a snack. When he came back, she was standing behind the couch, staring, holding a power drill. That's when I knew what had been in her hand the night she stood over me. I called the police. They already knew about her. She was schizophrenic, violent, and refusing medication. They said they couldn't enter her apartment without permission because she owned it. All they could do was wait for her to leave. For 2 days, I sat awake, waiting. Finally, at 2 a.m., she went out for cigarettes. I called the cops immediately. Within minutes, 3 patrol cars and a special van pulled up. They restrained her, forced her inside, and drove away. The street went quiet again, like she was never there. I never saw her after that, but I still dream about waking up, seeing her face inches from mine, whispering in the dark. You expect danger to come from the street or from strangers passing through, but the truth is, it can show up in the most familiar places, even in something as routine as the ride home from school.
This story was sent in by Maya from Texas. When I was 12, I lived in a small town where everyone knew everyone. School was 5 miles away, and every morning the same yellow bus picked us up. One afternoon, I stayed late for art class. By the time I left, the school was empty, the hallways dark. Outside, the usual buses were gone. Only one bus was parked at the curb. The driver waved me over. "You're late, hop on," he said. I hesitated. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't our usual driver. He was older, heavy-set, with sunken eyes and a sweaty baseball cap. "Where's Mr. Harris?" I asked, naming our normal driver. The man smiled, too wide. "He's sick today. I'm covering. Get in." Something about his voice made my stomach twist, but it was getting dark, and the thought of walking home along the highway scared me more. So I climbed aboard. The first thing I noticed was that the seats were torn, foam spilling out. It smelled of gasoline and rot. The bus was empty, no other kids. I sat in the middle row. The driver didn't start right away. He just kept staring at me in the rearview mirror, his lips moving like he was whispering to himself. Finally, the bus lurched forward, but it didn't take the usual route. Instead, he turned onto a back road leading into the woods. I gripped my backpack, heart racing. My house is the other way," I said. He didn't answer. His hands gripped the wheel tighter. The trees grew thicker, the road darker. I realized he hadn't asked me where I lived. He was just driving. Panic surged. I slipped out of my seat quietly and moved toward the back. The bus rattled, and he finally noticed. His eyes met mine in the mirror. "Sit down," he barked. I didn't. I yanked the rear emergency door handle. The alarm screamed, and cold air rushed in. The driver slammed the brakes, shouting. I jumped, hit the gravel hard. My knees tore open, but I didn't stop. I ran through the trees, branches cutting my face, until I stumbled onto a small road. By sheer luck, a pickup truck came by. The driver, a farmer, stopped when he saw me crying and bleeding. He called the police. When they went back to the woods, the bus was gone. The school swore they had never hired a replacement driver. To this day, no one knows who that man was or what would have happened if I hadn't jumped. Being trapped on a bus with the wrong driver is horrifying enough, but being trapped in the woods with someone who chooses to walk right into your campfire light is a different kind of nightmare.
This story was sent in by Lucas from Oregon. 2 summers ago, I went camping with 3 friends in the Cascades. We found a quiet spot off the trail near a creek. By sundown, we had a fire going, roasting hot dogs, laughing. Around midnight, when the fire died low, we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming from the trees. We froze. Probably a deer, someone whispered. But then we heard breathing, human. A man stepped into the firelight. He was tall, with a filthy beard, wearing a torn jacket and no shoes. His feet were bleeding. He didn't say a word, just stared at us. "Hey, man, you okay?" my friend asked. The stranger tilted his head like he didn't understand. Then he crouched down at the edge of the fire and reached his hands toward the flames, warming them. His nails were long, black, cracked. We exchanged nervous glances. Something was off. After a minute, he looked up at us and smiled. It wasn't friendly. It was stretched, wrong. His teeth were broken and sharp. Nobody moved. Finally, my friend whispered, "We should go to bed." We climbed into the tent together, zipped it tight, and held our breath. That's when we heard it. The sound of fabric being cut, slow tearing along the side of the tent. A thin line appeared inches from my face. His knife.
We bolted out the other side, sprinting barefoot into the trees. We didn't stop until we reached the ranger station 2 miles away. When rangers went back to our campsite, everything was gone. Tents, bags, food, even the ashes of our fire. It looked like we had never been there. But they found something 30 yards away, hanging from a branch. Our torn tent, sliced neatly into strips like trophies. We never went camping again.